Thank you for watching this PolicyCast. This last week I did introduce an important piece of legislation called the Clean Energy Standard Act of 2012. And this is important legislation because I believe it will help us in a responsible way move to less carbon dioxide emissions, reduced carbon dioxide emissions in the power sector. About 40% of the carbon dioxide emissions that occur in our country and worldwide occur in the generation of electricity. And so what we're doing is trying to focus on these generation capabilities, the power plants that generate this electricity, and provide incentives for the utilities that operate those power plants to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide that they emit in the course of producing the electricity. So this legislation is intended to accomplish that. Yeah, what this bill will do is to say that beginning in 2015, we set a standard, we set a benchmark, and essentially say utilities have to produce less carbon dioxide for every megawatt hour of electricity that they generate than this standard. And the standard is 0.82 metric tons of carbon dioxide per megawatt hour. That's the standard. It's essentially calculated based on what a modern coal plant currently produces. And we're saying, as a utility, overall, you've got to generate your electricity more efficiently than that, or else you've got to go out and acquire credits under this system, and that will undoubtedly cost some money. So there's a financial incentive for utilities to become more efficient, and that incentive grows each year between 2015 and 2035, so that at the end of the 20-year period we will have something around 80% or slightly over 80% of the power being produced in our country being produced more efficiently than this standard that we've set. Yeah, the Clean Energy Standard would apply only to large utilities, and that is beginning in 2015, we estimate that 8% of the utilities in the country would be affected directly by this legislation. And then by the time it's completed, by the time the full 20 years are done, as much as 12 or 13% of utilities in the country would be affected. Most of our utilities in New Mexico are not affected because they're not producing enough megawatt hours of electricity. But we do think most of the greenhouse gas emissions, most of the carbon dioxide emissions produced in the power sector are produced by the largest utilities. And for that reason, that's what this legislation tries to deal with. There is no cost to the taxpayer for implementing this clean energy standard. And there's really no money collected by the federal government except in the fairly rare circumstance where a company decides not to comply and wants to pay a penalty instead. So this is a way to encourage and incentivize these utilities to move to cleaner generation of electricity. It does not cost the taxpayer to do that. We're getting a final calculation of whether or not there's any increased cost to consumers. This is a calculation being made by the Energy Information Administration, which is the organization within the Department of Energy that does analyses of these types. We're having them analyze whether there's an increase in the cost to consumers. Our initial estimate is that there would be no increase, at least for the first 10 years that this program is in effect, that there would be a very modest increase after that, but it would be as I say, a very modest increase that would be in place by the end of the 20 years in 2035. There is no cap on carbon emissions as part of this legislation. This is not cap and trade legislation. This is an effort to provide financial incentives for companies to transition to use of cleaner energy, cleaner forms of electricity generation. There is no limit on what they're able to generate by way of carbon emissions. The reason we're going through this exercise is, of course, to try to reduce the carbon emissions that are resulting from the generation of electricity in our country today. And we are estimating that there'll be something between 20% and 40% reduction in those carbon emissions by the time this legislation is fully implemented. That would be a step forward. It doesn't totally solve the problem of carbon dioxide emissions in our country, but it is a major step in trying to deal with it. Thank you again for watching, and I hope this is of interest to you. We have more information about this on our website. If you're interested in looking at it, we'd be glad to try to answer any questions that occur to you. Thank you again.